Hey, we are back with another Bible Lounge, and today we are going to be talking about a topic known as eschatology. Eschatology. Have you ever scratched your head when thinking about end times events, or read through Bible passages that talk about end times events and wondering what in the world is going on? What is it talking about? Or heard pastors mention end times events and just kind of scratched your head? Hopefully, today I can clarify what eschatology is and kind of summarize the field of eschatology and make it simple, make it a little more easy for us to understand. And in future weeks, I'm going to be staying on this topic of eschatology, but I'm going to be going into various branches of eschatology, for instance, the rapture or millennial reign, and describing what the Bible says about them. And I will say this again. My point of this video and most of my videos I'm trying to do is not give you my interpretation of the Bible. I'm trying to give you a summary of strictly what the Bible says. I will offer my interpretation where it requires it, but I'm trying to be as least biased as I can so that I'm just presenting the facts and making it simple, but you still have the ability to interpret yourself, which is very important with the Bible. There are objective interpretations, but each one of us is attempting to come to that objective interpretation. But I just want to be as least as biased as I can, especially with end time stuff, because there's pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, all-millennial, post-millennial. There's all kinds of stuff out there. What I want to do is summarize it all and make it easier for you to understand that whole field of theology and what the Bible says about any given topic, and especially this time about eschatology. So stick around and we'll jump into eschatology. Eschatology. So as you noticed from the intro, eschatology just means the study of the end times. It refers to end times events or the field of branch of theology of end times events. Now, there are a number of terms in the Bible. I'm just going to list some of the most well-known ones that also refer to the end times. So that would be the end, that would be the Great Tribulation, that would be the return of Christ, that would be also known as the parousia, there would be the day of the Lord, the judgment, the resurrection. All of these refer to the times of the end. All right, so those are just some terms that you might see in the Bible, or similar terms like that in the Bible that refer to the end times. Now that we know what the word end times means, what exactly are the end times? How do we summarize and make easy this topic of the end times? I think the way that we do it is I just want to summarize sort of all of the events of the end times. And I'm going to do my best without having any bias towards any one interpretation. So I'm going to give you the best as to what the Bible straightforward says, and these are pretty much non-debated in most Christian circles. This is kind of the non-debated stuff, and it's just a general summary of end times events, and my goal is to hopefully do this chronologically. Okay? So right now, we are living in what are called sometimes in the Bible as the last days. Now, there are the last days, and then there are the last days. So right now we are in the last days, in that Jesus came. Salvation is at hand. All of the promises that promised a Messiah and promised forgiveness of sin have been fulfilled now in Jesus because he died on the cross. And then Jesus rose from the grave, right? So his resurrection becomes key in end times events because now we hope for his resurrection like Jesus is. He became the first fruit. We're going to learn that in the resurrection video. But so when he resurrected, he really brought in his life, death, burial, resurrection, ascension, inaugurated, if you will, the last days. So we are in the last days. We are in the days where the thing we look forward to is the return of Christ. But that doesn't mean it's the end of the world last days, okay? So there is a future end of the world last days. And in most Christian circles, and also, it seems to be what the Bible says, this is a 7-year period, also known as the 7-year tribulation. It's spoken of in Daniel chapter 9. There is this final 7-year period that is yet to be fulfilled, and that is the last days. Those are the real last days, okay? That's the last 7-year period, and then Christ will return. So at some point in human history, that 7-year tribulation will begin. And that time is going to be a very hard time to live. God's wrath is going to be poured out during that time. The Antichrist, I'll make a video on him. The Antichrist is going to arise in that time. And after about the 3.5 mark of that 7-year period is when the Antichrist will desecrate this Jerusalem temple which assumes there's going to be a third temple, will desecrate the temple and proclaim himself really to be the Messiah, to be God, whatever. And he's going to lead the world astray. And after that point, the Great Tribulation could also be seen as maybe the next 3.5 years. The second 3.5 years of that 7-year period is going to be almost quite literally hell on earth. It's going to be just destruction and torment, and just God's wrath will be poured out, and the Antichrist will be on the move. It's not going to be a fun time to live. And then after the 7-year tribulation, at the end of that 7 years, Jesus returns. And this is the book of Revelation, chapter 19. It discusses this. There's other sections. It discusses Jesus's return in the Bible, like in Matthew and various passages. But in Revelation, we get a clearer picture. So Revelation tells us Jesus returns after the 7-year period. And that really ends the 7-year period. He returns. He destroys the nations and all of those who oppose him. He takes the Antichrist, his follower, throws him in the lake of fire. He destroys the devil. And then Revelation tells us he sets up this millennial reign. I'm not going to get into that if that's an actual event that happens in the future. There's different debates on that. But nevertheless, let's just skip that millennial reign part. There is some kind of millennial reign, whether it's happening now, whether it's symbolic. We don't quite know for sure. I know what I believe, but in the end, we don't know for sure. But nevertheless, Jesus comes. He destroys all of those who oppose him. The resurrection happens at his arrival. He calls all of those out from the graves. We receive our new bodies, and anybody who had died previously will receive their new bodies, will be transformed into their new bodies, and will be with Jesus. And Jesus will destroy all of those who oppose him. And then ultimately, he will cast all of the devil and his angels into hell. And then another type of resurrection happens. The Bible calls this kind of a second resurrection. The Bible doesn't actually say second resurrection, but it's hinted at because it says that blessed are those who partake in the first resurrection. So there's this second resurrection. That would be those who are non-believers. They are resurrected unto death, unto condemnation, to where they are judged. And then all of those who oppose Jesus, the devil and his angels, the Antichrist, all of the non-believers are cast into the lake of fire. Again, I'm not going to get into whether this is a real place of burning. This is just what the Bible says. And then he sets up a new kingdom. Jesus sets up this new kingdom. The heaven and earth are pretty much made new. And believers are living with Jesus now in this eternal kingdom in their new bodies with Jesus forever. And there's no more tears, no more crying. I'm going to get to that in the heaven video. But really, that's a summarization of them end times events. Now, there's a few things that I didn't add in, such as the rapture of the church. I'm going to get to that at a later date on another video about what that is, the various views on the rapture. But for the most part, that is kind of the chronological order that is not that greatly debated in the Christian church. Most Christian circles hold to this order of events in the way I described it. I did not go into any bias of interpretation, hopefully as much as I could. That is sort of the summary of end times events. Now I have a list here of some of these events of future videos I'm going to do. Now, this isn't exhaustive, right? There's going to be more than this, but I'm going to make a video on each one of these end times events. Okay, we have rapture, we have millennial reign, we have resurrection, we have Jesus's return or parousia, we have judgment, we have heaven, hell, Antichrist, and then there's more. I don't know if I'm going to make any more videos after that, but those are the ones that really summarize end times events. So I hope that so far in this video, you have a better understanding of at least what the field of eschatology looks like, what it is made up of, a kind of a summary of end times events, and I hope to see you in the future videos where I explain each one of these events in more detail. I will see you in the next one.